We have, I shared with Mr. Rose this a couple of weeks ago on the phone whenever we arranged for me to come here tonight, but we have requested design funds so that as soon as we do have report approval, we can hopefully go ahead and get some design funds in hand to where we can continue on and there's not a huge pause or huge gap in our schedule. And then I know that Mr. Rose, we had also talked about, you know, the city on as well as Mr. Dunkel. So we're very excited where we're going. I think we'll get there. I'm excited to be able to finally build something. So looking forward to it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Honorable Mayor and Councilmembers, if I could just add on what Mr. Jones is referring to is my intention to work with our lobbyist as well as our federal delegation to see if we can identify funding initially for the design work. I think that is perhaps the priority at this point, but eventually for the construction project as a whole. And my intention is to work with the mayor very closely in trying to acquire those funds.
I think he just soft punted something over to me. Any questions? Hearing none, thank you.
Yep. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this next item is an update on the flood buyout program. We have Dr. Wagner that will be introducing this item. Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Good evening, everybody. Last Wednesday, received a notification from SEMA, State Emergency Management Agency, about the list of flood buyout properties that we submitted over the past couple of months, really. There was an initial list and that list was then updated, and the Wilson Avenue homes had 16 on that list. The Birch Lane list had 19, which was all the homes that are on Birch Lane, and Hafner Court. Well, I'll explain that one in just a moment. I got a call from SEMA and they said that was too much on both lists, that didn't fit into their budget, and they were trying to make it fit into their budget. So on the Wilson Avenue homes, we removed 4, which are basically the most southern 4, the last 3 on Wilson and the one on Shaftesbury on the corner. So on the map that I provided everyone before the meeting, the red dots, of course, are the ones that are on Wilson, and those have been approved pending FEMA funding, which is kind of always the case. But those 12 homes rather have been approved for funding by FEMA, and that leaves the Birch Lane ones to explain. There were 10 homes on the Birch Lane revised list, and those are in what they call a stacked list, which is a wait list. So if other cities are dropping out of the program in the coming months, then there's a possibility that the Birch Lane homes may be funded after all. And I need to submit by April 1st a further application for both lists. So I certainly haven't given up on the Birch Lane properties as well. Hafner Court, down in the lower right-hand corner, there are 4 buildings in the Hafner Court apartments, the 3 that have a Hafner Court address, and then the ones on Westover Court. The 2 most eastern ones on Hafner Court and then the Westover building, all are eligible for 100% federal funding and 0 local match because they flood so often, really. And that left the most western building, which is a 75-25 split. So so that was good news from that perspective, and the Hafner Court project has been funded. I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions of Dr. Wagner? Mr. Smotherson?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Dr. Wagner, in reference to Hafner Court Apartments. Now, again, we've gone through this before, so can you tell us that there is no way that they can change their minds on this funding from FEMA?
In other words, should they, or can we request that they do it, or or is there a way that they can change their minds? Yeah, I suppose there is a way they can change their minds. I mean, everything that I've had so far through email is based on FEMA funding, but I don't have any reason to think that they would have any reason to say, yeah, we're going to fund it, and say, yeah, no. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but not likely.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, if you recall, the last project that was approved by FEMA to purchase Hafner Court Apartments did not fall through because of any actions that FEMA took. It was simply a situation where the owner at that time wanted a higher price. So they changed the amount that they were requesting for that property, resulting in FEMA not allocating enough funding for it. So I'm hopeful that, as you know, it's a voluntary program, and I am hopeful that the owners will agree to sell.
And I've heard from the owner several times, by the way, Mr. Rose, and he's, I think, anxious to do so.
And I just wanted to say that, thank you, Mr. Rose, but, and I wasn't indicating that there was any problem with FEMA or the city.
Mhm.
It was the owner. And I do remember that specifically. So I'm just asking to make sure that the owner is not able to back out of this, or, and that's what I'm
Okay.
really.
I believe
asking.
there's a new owner now, if I'm not
Right,
mistaken.
right.
So,
And in that email, he did say he was indicating he wants to be bought
yeah,
out.
he
So-
emailed me earlier this afternoon, actually. So
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cusick?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Dr. Wagner, I have a couple of questions on the houses that have been approved by SEMA for buyout. We've been in touch with those residents to make sure that they're aware of what the
yes,
status is.
I'm writing a letter to each of them to make sure they are aware of it. I did send an email out earlier because I knew the letter wouldn't have gotten there before tonight's meeting, and I knew it was on the agenda. So yes, I'm going to make sure that, and some of them are actually in the audience this evening.
And then what about the homes that are on the wait list? Have we been advising those homeowners?
Yes, they were on the same list, and a couple of them are here tonight as well.
And what are we telling them? Because there's not any hope that they're going to be bought out immediately, and that you're saying that the next step is that we could possibly submit another application by April 1st of next year for the buyout on those properties?
No, well, the April 1st application is for both the Wilson Avenue and the Birch Lane and the Hafner Court funding. So that's kind of how slow the process may be moving. So the April 1st application is for these homes. So, and I've been asked to submit the same application for the Birch Lanes in case they do receive funding. And if they don't receive funding this time around, they will get an extra few points, so to speak, for funding down the road.
So what are we advising those homeowners that,
Well, yeah, that's probably the biggest quandary so far. I've told them, and a couple of them tonight as well, that I'm going to find out as soon as I can what's going on, so they can at least know, make plans perhaps. But then I haven't given up on those 10 homes just yet. But as of right now, and I did ask the folks at SEMA, I said, well, I'm going to be asked what the chances are 50-50. And they said, don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even want to throw a number out there.
and I know that that FEMA and the Small Business Administration had some resources available, but to submit any type of application to those two federal organizations, there was a time differential involved. Are these homeowners, if they decide to submit applications, are they still able to do that? Do you know what the status of that is?
Of the Small Business Administration?
Right. If people
I-
want to submit applications, it was my understanding they had to do it by a certain date, and I thought it was in November. Um,
I'm not sure what the status of those was, but I'll find out though.
so that if those homeowners need to go that route, they're still able to do so.
As far as I know, but that's a question I'll have to ask SEMA.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon, no. You're good? Ms. Klein?
Yeah, I just had a question about the southern homes on Wilson that were taken off the list.
Mhm.
I also don't, based on this graph, I don't see that they're on the wait list either.
They,
Or-
no, they weren't. They could, I had to whittle the Wilson Avenue one down from 16 to 12. But I mean, that having said that, they said, no, there wasn't anything wrong with the homes as far as being a viable project. So, so those two would get additional consideration
Yeah.
in next time around.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
do
I'll make
know
sure they
that
do.
that southern part of the River Decatur
know,
kind of
yeah.
hits them first, like
Yeah,
really.
and I haven't given up on other solutions for everybody as well too, but yeah, that seems those 4 homes in particular, and maybe even a few more. I want to make sure that we can address those in subsequent applications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rose?
Honorable Mayor and council members, this agenda item asked, the next agenda item on the city manager's report asked that you receive a quarterly financial report. I believe we have our finance director, Keith Cole, here that will be presenting this item. Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Honorable Mayor, members of council. I'll be presenting the first quarter of FY 23 on the financial report. And I usually just take the major funds that we consider, just kind of the top 4. And the first one is the general fund revenues. We have an adjusted budget of 23.4 million. And the year-to-date actual thus far is 3.1 million. And the actual as a percent of the adjusted budget is 13.4%. And we have an increase of 244,000 compared to the same quarter of FY 22. This is keeping on, it's from increase from a grant revenue that we received for the SAFER grant of 358,000. And this grant has been closed out. We had an increase in service charges of roughly 206,000. And we had a decrease in the municipal court and park of roughly 81,000. And this was just mainly due to the decrease in collecting fees on parking fines, court costs. We had a decrease in miscellaneous revenue of roughly 233,000. And this is mainly due because we haven't, in FY 22, we received a surplus distribution from our St. Louis Area Insurance Trust, and we haven't received that thus far. I'm hoping to receive it sometime this month or next month. And again, the bulk of the property taxes, the revenue that comes in the months of December and January. So overall, we had the revenues as a percent of the budget shows a slight increase of 1.7%. Not sure why it's not moving forward. That works. Thanks. Thank you. For the general fund expenditures, we have an adjusted budget of 28.1 million. The year-to-date actual is 7.3 million. The actual is a percent. The adjusted budget is 26.2%. This is an increase of 1.9, almost 2 million from the same quarter of FY 22. Basically, the main increase here is due to the flood, we've had making a lot of emergency purchases due to vehicles and equipment. In the areas of the parks, public works, it's related to 1.3 million. For the police department, it was 186,000. And the fire department of roughly 389,000. And the overall expenditure as a percent of the budget increased by 6.3%. The capital improvement revenues. We had an adjusted budget of 2.5 million. The year-to-date actual is 246,000. The actual is, as a percent of the budget, 9.9%. And we had a decrease of 38,000 compared to FY 22. This is the sales tax revenue decreased roughly 0.8% of the first quarter. And so we're really, we're not concerned, but it's just decreased a little bit. And as a reminder, that the revenue based here is just per capita. Capital improvement sales tax expenditure, the adjusted budget is 2.1 million. Year-to-date actual is 62,000. The actual as a percent is 2.8%. We had a decrease of 21,222. And the decrease here is we in FY 2022, the first quarter, we had purchased the 6th Nissan Leaf vehicle. And we didn't buy any additional vehicles for this first quarter of the fiscal year. Parks and sales tax revenue. We've had the adjusted budget is 1.3 million. The year-to-date actual is 126,000. The actual as a percent of the budget is 9.6%. And we've had an increase of 46,000. And here the sales tax for the first quarter shown increase roughly 57.9%. And the park and stormwater, the revenue, it's based on point of sale. The park and stormwater sales expenditures, we've had an adjusted budget of 1.2 million. The year-to-date actual is 44,847, and this represents 3.5% of the adjusted budget. And we've had an increase of roughly 6,395. And this is mainly due to payroll. We had in FY 22, we had 3 pay periods, and in September of this year, this fiscal year, we just had 2. Sorry, that's backwards. We've had 3 pay periods in September of 22, and we had 2 in last 21 in September. And public safety sales tax revenues is the budget is 2.1 million or 2 million. The year-to-date actual is 204,000. The actual as a percent is 10.2%. And we've had a decrease of 6,745. And again, it's a little slight decrease, but we're still comparable from prior fiscal year. And the expenditures, we've had an adjusted budget of 440,000, year-to-date 158,000. The percent of the adjusted budget actually was 36%, and we have shown a little increase of 10,792. And basically, this is just due to we've allocated the HR director's salary partial on the public safety side to help handling the police and firemen's HR benefits. And in FY 22, that position was most of the time it was vacant. And I'll be open for any questions.
Are there any questions from members of council to Mr. Cole? Seems not. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
All right, thanks.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this next item is ask that you consider a resident request for the use of OMCI funding from the Metropolitan Sewer District for a stormwater project on private property. I am recommending denial of the request to use OMCI funding for an improvement on private property. Metropolitan Sewer District has acknowledged the problem causing the flooding is a result of a pipe too small to accommodate the amount of stormwater runoff it receives and intends to correct the piping in the future, although they have not identified a time period for that. Second issue is that we do not currently have a program for which residents, any resident, can apply for OMCI funding for private property improvements. While I believe this could be a viable project, because we do not have the benefit of allowing all residents with stormwater runoff to be considered for private property improvement, I do not believe that it would be appropriate to approve a project for one resident. Happy to respond to any questions that you have, and I believe the resident is here tonight and can respond to any questions that you have as well.
I guess my question of you, Mr. Rose, is what action is being asked of us? Is this a vote? Is this or is it, what is the action that is being requested of us this evening?
If the mayor and council agree, my recommendation would be to accept the recommendation of the city manager and deny this request.
Are there questions of members of from members of council to Mr. Rose? Are there comments to be made? Mr. Hales?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Do you have any sense of what the cost of the improvements that MSD needs to make to fix this problem are? And can we recommend, not tonight, but potentially recommend to MSD that these funds could be recommended for that project? Because it does seem like the fundamental problem is clearly that their sewers do not conform with the standards that are their own.
Our Mayor, Councilmember Hales, if the council accepts my recommendation, my intention is to work with MSD to try and get them to identify a time period when this improvement would be made, the pipe being enlarged. Secondly, I would offer the OMCI funding as a subsidy of the larger project that's needed. I believe it's in excess of $1 million from what I recall. And so this is a small amount of funding, but it is, in my mind, shows that we have a serious interest in getting this, the stormwater addressed in this area.
Mr. Smotherson?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Mr. Rose, just the question that I actually ask is this, the Stormwater Commission, they actually approve this, or they're making the recommendation that we approve it. Is that correct?
Our Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, that is correct.
Okay. And so the question that I have, being familiar with the area, it doesn't just affect these two households, because doesn't the water rush across around the corner? And does it not affect neighbors on the other side of the street, if I'm correct, if you could verify that for me?
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, the stormwater runoff that's impacting the resident that has made this application is a broader problem than just this resident. That is correct. That is why Metropolitan Sewer District is looking at the installation of a larger pipe, because they recognize that that is part of the problem, that is simply too small to accommodate the amount of runoff that that happens there. Both the quantity of the stormwater as well as the speed of the stormwater.
Mr. McMahon.
Just, I had a question and I looked at the Storm Water Commission's charge today. And I'm not certain how this would come in front of them if their charge was to help and look at projects for the community. And I now understand that the residents are members of the community, but wouldn't the Stormwater Commission's focus be on something larger than individual projects at individual homes, but they're looking for something larger? And I don't know if we need to clarify that, because that kind of, by pushing it through in that direction, while I'm sure we wanted to help our residents find a goal, an endpoint to their problems, I'm not certain, looking at that, if that was the intent of what the charge for the Stormwater Commission was to look at. Certainly, they've assembled homes that have had flooding issues and put together larger proposals and projects, but getting down to this level, it seems to me that we'd be opening the door to neighbors down the street that then want us to put in a berm. Can we tap into that, and we'd be revisiting this over and over if that's the forum where this starts? So that was, I'm just not certain if that's where what that was really the intent of the Stormwater Commission, was to get to that level of specificity. So that was just my question, kind of couched in a concern.
Honorable Mayor and Councilmember McMahon, when this item was first presented to staff, we asked the applicant to work with the Metropolitan Sewer District, because we recognize that stormwater management is their responsibility. We placed this on the agenda for the Stormwater Commission because we know that they were looking at stormwater more broadly. But when they considered this matter, I'm not so sure that they had all of the facts in front of them, especially as it relates to what MSD said was causing the problem. And so we took this to them because at the time they were evaluating stormwater runoff more broadly. And we wanted them to provide us with their thoughts regarding it. I'm not so sure that, again, all of the information that was needed to effectively evaluate this particular project was provided to the Stormwater Commission. We later on learned a great deal of information about the project. But at that time, it had already gone to the Stormwater Commission, and they had made their recommendation. Didn't see any value in returning it to the Stormwater Commission, because we know that they are primarily looking at projects on public property where the city might participate. And so instead of that, we wanted to make sure that the mayor and council was able to at least consider it, even though I knew that we were be denying it, because staff's perspective is just a recommendation.
So if there are no other questions or comments, I will be looking for a motion from someone either to approve or deny, and then a second, and then either a discussion or a vote. So I'm not sure who needs to make this motion, but to my colleagues, we need someone to step up. Mr. Cusick. What is your motion to accept the city manager's recommendation, or is your motion to not?
It is, motion is to accept the city manager's recommendation.
There's been a motion made by Mr. Cusick. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Klein. Is there discussion? Mr. Cusick.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. And I would just like to add that the members of the Commission on Stormwater Issues did discuss this at length, this specific area, as well as what to do with stormwater runoff issues that apparently are compounded because of some of the lack of due diligence on the part of MSD. And they did discuss this in other areas at length. And I believe that they came to this recommendation the way they did, understanding that this question was probably out of their purview, that this was not something that they should have been discussing, but it was brought to them just for a discussion purpose to determine the feasibility of something like this. And they did recognize that asking them to make decisions about private property issues throughout University City would probably not be feasible and under the conditions of what the tasks of the Commission on Stormwater Issues is.
Thank you, Mr. Cusick. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion to follow the city manager's recommendation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and Council, this next item asks that you consider a CUP 22-08 application for a conditional use permit cup at 7360 Forsyth Boulevard to allow a gasoline station and convenience store in the GC General Commercial District. We have Dr. Wagner that will be presenting this item. Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. On September 28th, 2022, CUP 22-08 was before the Plan Commission, and it was recommended approval, and the 5 conditions of the coming out of the Plan Commission are listed on page 3 of the staff report. Also, a little bit of background: as you know, the site now is a garage to work on vehicles, and I believe the gentleman who runs that is retiring, and so the owners are turning it into a
I believe I beg your pardon? Yeah, we're out of order, aren't we?
oh
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That's my
I was
fault.
scratching my head a little bit there, but I was a little slow on the draw.
Mine is just out of order the way it's. Anyway, if I could return to the city manager's report, item number 6, conditional use permit, CUP 22-11, market of Olive Phase 4, Lot A. Dr. Wagner, if you could present this.
thank
item.
you. I'm prepared for that one as well.
Thank you.
This one is a conditional use permit to solely reduce the parking by 8.5% from 59 spaces to 54 spaces for Lot A of the Phase 4 of the Market at Olive development, also known as the Chick-fil-A lot. So that's pretty much the crux of it. I would be happy to answer any questions on that.
Are there questions of Dr. Wagner? If not, is there a motion to approve? Mr. Smotherson, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Cusick. Is there discussion? Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Dr. Wagner, very quickly, with the queuing that they have set up for Chick-fil-A, how would somebody that got stuck in the middle get out? Because there's no
Escape lane, so to
escape
speak.
lane. Yes,
Um,
and that could be important, but because of the way this is designed, it is going to be walled in on the outside.
Correct.
So there is no escape lane, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I do, yes. I don't know the answer to that. I can, Mr. David Hutkin of representing the Market at Olive Development is here tonight, and I will. I'm sorry, somebody else is here.
A player to be named. If you would please come forward to give your name, address, and affiliation, that would be helpful.
Sure. Name is Justin Lurk. I'm a principal development lead at Chick-fil-A. Our address is 5200 Buffington Road in Atlanta, Georgia, but I didn't fly in. I just live down the road in Arnold, so happy to be here in front of you. Great question, but what you'll notice with the dual drive-through lane, again, this is our isolated design, a little bit different than what you might be used to seeing in the market, where the building's in the center of the lot and then the drive-throughs right around the building, then all the parking's on the outside. So this is kind of our new play going forward, but with the dual drive-through lane, our operators and team members are trained on emergencies. If someone gets stuck in one of the lanes, we've got 2 lanes to be able to bypass cars around a car to safely exit someone. My pleasure.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this item up under the city manager's report, item number 7, asks that you consider a conditional use permit CUP 22-12 market at Olive Phase 4 Lot B. Dr. Wagner will be presenting this item. Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. This one is strikingly similar to CUP 22-11, is for Lot B of the Phase 4 Market at Olive, essentially the corner of Woodson and Olive, and it's a multi-tenant building. And they are requesting a reduction in parking of 16.2% from 74 to 62 spaces. They feel they're comfortable with that level of parking.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Smotherson. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this item up under the city manager's report, item number 8, which we are returning to, is a conditional use permit CUP 22-8 7364 site. Dr. Wagner will be presenting this item. Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. I feel like I've already spoiled the surprise a little bit. Again, this one, the garage is basically shutting down, and they're turning it into a on-the-run convenience store, and it'll remain as a gas station as well. And Mr. Mark Jordan and Kevin Camp from Wallace Companies are here to answer any questions, should there be any.
First, is there a motion to approve, and then we'll get to questions. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Smotherson, seconded by Mr. McMahon. Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you again, Mayor Crowe. Dr. Wagner and or the owners of this new facility. I think it's great, and I'm familiar with the area, even though it's the first ward, but I play a lot in that area, meaning at the Ritz Hotel, and I'm there late. I think it's a great idea, and I'm not concerned about the store itself. What I'm concerned about is the isolation fact of this store. And now you're going to have a 24/7, 24 hours, 24/7 store. And that isolation concerns me. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some configuration that locks the attendant in, meaning they've got some kind of safety or security measures. And also, I'm kind of wondering what our police chief would think about this being a 24/7 store. So that would be my current concern. Other than that, I think it's the transition is a great idea.
Evening. My name is Kevin Camp. I'm with Civil Environmental Consultants. We're a consultant for Wallace Companies. The offer has been made, and I think the police chief has been reached out to actually make this a substation.
Okay.
And so that offer is out there. And I don't know if that addresses what you're discussing. If there's particular safety measures in the interior of the building, we can chat about.
No, I think that helps. Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I get your name and address for the record? We
I'm
could not
sorry,
hear
Kevin
that.
Camp. Civil and Environmental Consultants, 3000 Little Hills Expressway in St. Charles, Missouri.
Thanks. Mr. Smothers, are you, okay, my question, gentlemen, is, and I'll just be kind of blunt on it, is that I'm trying to figure out the necessity of being 24 hours a day and the profitability of that factor versus us doing, I can see doing 24 hours a day on Olive where you've got 4 lanes plus a turn lane and you've got traffic moving. I'm trying to wrap my arms around 24 hours a day on Forsyth at 2 lanes in what is a much more residential neighborhood, and how important 24 hours a day is to you, because just to be completely blunt, once we give you 24 hours a day, we've given you 24 hours a day in your CUP. And I'm trying to wrestle with that, having lived in that particular neighborhood for a really long time. I'm trying to figure 24 hours a day at that location.
Mark Jordan, I'm with Wallace Companies. I don't know that we absolutely have to operate 24 hours a day. We just want the right to, in order to remain competitive. I agree with you. There may be times when there's not a whole lot of business going by there. But as you said, if you restrict us to less than 24 hours, then that's forever.
Not exactly.
Well,
I mean, I would rather go the other way. And first, I mean, because I think we've met before. I welcome the opportunity for you to do what you're doing. I would rather get you in, get you going. And then if we need to go further, then we go further, because the business just says you need to go further. It's much harder to take those hours away than it is to give them at a later date. And the offer being made on the substation is one thing, but the requirement is not in the CUP application.
No, but the offer stands. We'll make it again in public if that helps. We would love to have a substation there. I did talk to police chief about it, so he's aware of the offer. And while I don't, if the business warrants it, I'm glad you're open to that. The problem is we've got to figure out how to make this investment. And if the business warrants it, we're going to want to stay open.
I get that. I'll keep coming back to the idea of, and again, I may be standing alone. That's why I wanted the motion to be out there first, so that we could just have, so people can take the vote up or down. But what I guess my comment is, if the hours were from, I'll make it up. You're closed from midnight until 5 in the morning, or I don't pretend to know what are the best times for your business, because the last thing I think any of us should do is pretend that. But I'm just trying to determine where I assume the least traffic is about in the time frame, but I honestly don't know that. And again, I would yield to all of my colleagues, particularly my colleagues from the first ward, if at some point in time you want to go to 24 hours, and we've got no complaints from the people who are living on Little Linda, living on Northmore, living on Forsyth, I'm good to go. I'm still just trying to wrap my arms around a 2-lane neighborhood street versus Olive or Hanley, where you've got traffic bustling through.
You got Forest Park Parkway and you got Clayton. And so you're right, it's on the edge, but On the Run, that particular brand, our dirt cheap stores are not open 24 hours, but On the Runs are all open 24 hours.
Mr. Hales.
Thank you. Do you know the history of the operational hours of Woodard's? And I ask that because I remember many years ago, may have been before you all acquired the property. I can recall going there late at night, and of course all they had was, sodas and stuff. And the store was actually locked, but they had a sort of like a bank teller type window, and remember getting, Coke Zero or something like that back then. Do you know if this has ever been 24-hour, even for just a brief period?
I don't know for sure. We bought it in 2006, and I don't think Dennis and Carroll have operated 24 hours They may have prior to that, but we didn't own it then.
Okay, and to the mayor's comments, I think we had two public comments, both from residents in Northmore, one of whom I spoke with. The feedback that I've gotten, and it's probably only been about 6 people that have reached out, is really a mixed bag. It's, 3 to 3 or 4 to 2. Most folks, I think it's one more than not, did seem to be pleased about the idea of 24 hours, that there would be an attendant there, that it would be lit, and that there would be eyes. And the other thing, and Steve and I have talked about this, if it were to be 24 hours, I really would insist that a police substation be included, because I think there's tremendous benefit from not just you city police officers having a place to go, but Clayton, Wash U, and that added presence, I think, is potentially really a benefit in the overnight hours. I hear what the mayor's saying. I have not found this to be a enormously polarizing issue at all.
We also will have, I think we put in more than 30 security cameras in all of our new stores. And they're all, every one of our fuel islands has a camera on it. Every one of the, all of the doors, the front, the rear, it's covered.
Mr. McMahon.
Thank you. And I agree with Jeff in our discussions and the folks that have reached out to us. It didn't seem to be an overwhelming push to say we've got to restrict the hours. But at the same time, I understand the mayor's concern. Do they realize it's 24/7 after it's built? And then we hear from them. I don't know. That's how these things go sometimes. But at the same time, I think that the conversations Jeff and I had with folks that did reach out to us about a substation, I don't know if that's something we can amend, because if it's not in the CUP, then 2 years from now, it could just go away and there wouldn't be any teeth to that. And I'm not saying that's your intention, but that's just what it is. If it's not in the CUP, it's not in the CUP. Just like if your hours say 24, then it's 24. If it doesn't say substation, it doesn't say substation.
We would have no objection to putting substation in the CUP.
And it might be not for you more as it might be for our city attorney to say, is this something we can do?
The offer can go in the CUP.
I think you seem like a man of your words.
Well, I guess first thing if we're at this juncture, if you're going to do an amendment, you're going to need to do an amendment to the motion. That's number one. And as the city attorney and I were just speaking, you can always do one where if there is a police substation, it's 24 hours. And if there's not a police substation, it's limited hours. Not that you want to do it that way, and you guys probably don't either. I'm just to all of us where there either has to be a motion to amend to include a substation in it, or there's not, because we need to it's kind of got to be a motion made or not. Otherwise, it's not a requirement.
And am I good?
You're good to go.
All right. Then I would like to move that we amend the CUP as presented to include a police substation in the CUP as written with the 24 hours.
Is there a second? That amendment, seconded by Mr. Smotherson. So I think we're probably good on the questions. Thank you. Of course, as soon as I say that, we're probably going to call you back up, so you may want to hang close. So, Mr. Mulligan.
As a matter of clarification, that if there is no police substation, what would the hours be?
Well, the amendment was that there be a
understanding it, and certainly Councilmember McMahon can clarify. I thought what I heard was that there be a police substation and 24/7 that would be permitted. But if there is no police substation, then would that mean there's no CUP at all and the business couldn't operate?
My understanding was that CUP as it sat was 24 hours
There is no restriction on the hours under the current CUP.
in that. So we would need to, well, so we can do it one of two ways. We can do the motion as I presented it. So it'd be amending it to include a 24-hour a day operation with a substation. And then if that fails, then there would be another motion that somebody might, then then the question becomes, without 24 hours mentioned in it at all, then what do we do next?
You want to end on this too? Mr. Rose?
Honorable Mayor and council members, if it is agreeable to you, you might ask the applicant, what are the hours for the stations that are not 24 hours?
I think they're all 24 hours. Weren't they?
For this one, but he has a group of those that are not.
No, we operate two different kind of retail chains, retail formats. Dirt Cheap is another one of our brands, which is primarily tobacco and alcohol. Those are not 24 hours. The on the runs are 24 hours, and this will be a mobile or a BP on the run.
For those that provide alcohol that are called Dirt Cheap, what are the operating hours?
I think 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I think they'd missed the morning rush though on Forsyth. I'm with you on that one, just so you know. And by the way, I'm not taking this lightheartedly. I think we all understand that we want you in the neighborhood. We're just trying to find the right way to get you there. So,
Honorable Mayor, council members, I believe that the intent is to have it as a 24 hours with a substation. If it does not have a substation, I believe the hours that would be of greatest concern to our police department are likely from 1 a.m. And Chief, I'm looking at you, 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Those are the hours where where there is potential for crime to occur, where's the greatest potential for crime to occur. So if you are not 24 hours, we would want the station to be closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Is that acceptable?
If that's the only way that you'll approve it, we can certainly evaluate that.
I believe the mayor and council are looking at, are considering approving it with the full understanding that you will have a police substation. They're looking now at the
Correct.
alternative. If you do not, then what would be a reasonable hour?
Well, but the city can make the determination whether or not the substation is there or not. We can only offer that it's available for it. We can design the footprint of the store to accommodate, that facility. But you're asking me to agree to something that that the city may or may not decide to do, and that puts the burden of getting that done on me.
I have it on good authority that we're going to participate in the substation. There will be other communities participating as well, but certainly University City intends to participate.
Mr. Hales?
Thank you. So my question, circling back to Councilmember McMahon's amendment, if I heard John correctly, the CUP is for all hours. And so should the amendment then, if the intent is under the existing proposed CUP, just be about the substation and not about the hours?
Correct. Maybe I misstated it, maybe I misheard it, but I thought Mr. Mulligan said there was no limit on hours one way or the other in the CUP. It doesn't mention
Correct.
1 to 5. It doesn't mention 24 hours. So there is no limit. So I would have had to amend it to create a limit, which was 24 hours. And then I amended it also to include the substation, both of those. If that fails, then the CUP as it sits is back on your desk. as it sits. And if someone wants to amend it to have different hours, then we do that next. Correct. That's where we're at least my understanding.
Correct. Mr. Smotherson,
Sorry about that. Do we second his amendment? Has that been, he made the,
he already got, I think, Lori, you already seconded his amendment.
I did.
Yes. And so we're just discussing.
Right.
Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember McMahon, I believe if you are receptive to changing your amendment, then going forward, the CUP would be 24 hours, would allow for 24 hours if there is a police substation. If it is not, if it does not have or construct a police substation, then the hours would be closed. The operation would be closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
I get what you're saying, but I think what I hear this gentleman say, what as a business owner, I would agree to is that's if the city doesn't do their part, then we kind of, so I mean,
Honorable Mayor, the only thing that we're asking them at this time to do is to construct it.
Okay.
So the onus would be on them to construct it. It would be up to us to participate.
Okay, so that was gonna be my only question, is just to formalize, we will accommodate by footprint, by room in the building, by other accommodations as would normally be required in a substation. Should that be built out, it, no matter the amendment, language that's there and if it's and all this, it will be, allowed to be 24 hours. Okay,
that is my understanding of where we are at this point in time.
Okay.
Yes.
thank you.
So now the last question, you had suggested Mr. McMahon had changed, but I don't think Mr. McMahon necessarily went anywhere with your comments. Okay, are we leaving the amendment as it stands?
Yeah, because I'm confused as procedurally that we make,
I think we go with your, we go
we
with
make amendments that are contingent
Yeah.
upon
Yeah.
this.
Correct.
You know,
Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you. If I may clarify, we're talking about construction, but there has to be an operation. The owner has to be willing to allow the police to operate a substation there if it so chooses. So it's more than just constructing it, but actually the conditional use involves the actual operation of it going forward. Just to clarify that. Is
So
that accurate? Or the police, if the police department elects not to use it for whatever reason, manpower shortage, then the owner would still be allowed to operate 24/7. Is that accurate?
we're really making some sausage here tonight, aren't we? So if you want to bring Chief Hampton up, I really would like to move this relatively, because I think we know that we have a council agreement. If I'm watching everybody's heads, we're okay with them going 24 hours a day if they have a police substation. However you guys want to word it, if there's a different way we need to word it, I think the members of council here have reached a consensus. You can watch the heads going up and down. So Mr. Mulligan, if you have a way you specifically want it worded, I am positive that Mr. McMahon would withdraw his motion and would resubmit it with the words you would like. And I'm betting Mr. Smotherson would probably second it. So is there something different we need than the language that Mr. McMahon presented? I'm asking Mr. Mulligan first, and then I can go to you. Mr. Mulligan.
And I'm just trying to state what my understanding of the council consensus appears to be on this. And that is that the hours will be limited to those other than 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. In other words, it has to be closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Unless a police station is constructed and in use by the police department, provided that if the police department elects not to staff that particular substation, the the business may nevertheless be open from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. daily.
I think Mr. Hales had his button on first. So we're going to go to Mr. Hales first.
Well, my thought to address that would be provided that the space inside the building remains designated for that use and provided that the designation be posted on the building. Doesn't that accomplish?
Mr. McMahon.
So I will withdraw my prior amendment. And I like the way Mr. Mulligan worded it this time because it's not an amendment. If this one fails, that one passes because he changed his verbiage a little bit. So I would move to amend it that the hours would be the CUP would have hours of where it was closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the event that a police substation was not in the facility and operated by the establishment, barring the city choosing not to use it. So that we're not, so in that way, and that's the amendment. And that in that way, what we're allowing for is what they're asking for 24 hours. Our substation goes in, but the business doesn't shut down. They just have totally, because they violated the CUP, it just reverts back to a shorter day. So I think that's a good way to put it.
The onus is on the city to put the substation in. The onus is on the city to have the police there. And if we don't do it, then that's us. Am I correct?
As long as we build it and
that-
accommodate for it, both
Yep.
allowance and signage.
I believe, Ms. Reese, I know that you'll have that in the minutes appropriately. And I know that Mr. McMahon made the motion and Mr. Hales seconded it. And I know so I think we are, but now we have a motion to amend the CUP. Those, I hate to ask this, are there any other questions or comments from anyone? If not, Mr. Smotherson.
And I'm sorry, I do apologize about doing this, but I do want to make sure that you all understand what we're considering is safety. What we're considering is safety. It is, and as the mayor said, and I said in the beginning, this is an isolated store. We want to make sure everybody that goes there and uses that facility and works there is safe.
Those in favor of the amendment on the floor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now you have before you the CUP as amended. I don't believe I have to have another motion. Do I? I thought it was already introduced and seconded some time ago. Those in favor of the CUP as amended, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this evening. We now go to unfinished business. We have before us bill number 9489. May we have the second reading?
Bill 9489, an ordinance amending Schedule 7 of the Traffic Code to revise traffic regulation as provided herein.
May we have the third reading?
Bill 9489, an ordinance amending Schedule 7 of the Traffic Code to revise traffic regulation as provided herein.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Ms. Klein, seconded by Mr. Cusick. Is there discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon,
Aye.
Councilmember Hales.
Aye.
Councilmember Cusick,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye, the bill is passed. May we have on bill number 9490, may we have the second reading?
Bill 9490, an ordinance amending Section 400.070 of the Municipal Code of the City of University City, Missouri, relating to the official zoning map by amending said map so as to change the classification of property known as Lot A and Common Ground 2 of Plat 4 of the Marketed Olive Development from PD, Planned Development Commercial District, GC, General Commercial, and SR, Single Family Residential District 2, PD, Planned Development Commercial District, PD-C.
Ms. Reese, I apologize for making you do this, but may we have the third reading?
Bill 9490, an ordinance amending section 400.070 of the municipal code of the city of University City, Missouri, relating to the official zoning map by amending said map so as to change the classification of property known as Lot A and Common Ground 2 of Plat 4 of the Market at Olive Development from PD, Planned Development Commercial District, GC, General Commercial, and SR, Single Family Residential District 2, PD, Planned Development Commercial District, PD-C.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Smotherson. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hills.
Aye.
Councilmember Cusick.
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson. Councilmember Klein.
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon.
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye, the bill has passed. We'll now move forward to new business resolution number 2022-13, resolution for fiscal year budget amendment number 2. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Hales. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Cusick. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have. We now have resolution number 2022-14, the preliminary plan approval for the Market Olive Phase 4 development lots A and Common Ground. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Smotherson. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Klein. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now we'll go to new bills. Bill number 9491. Who would like to introduce? Mr. Smotherson. May we have the first reading, Ms. Reese?
Bill 9491, an ordinance approving a petition to add real property to the Marcus at Olive Community Improvement District.
Thank you very much. We now have bill number 9492. Who would like to introduce? Mr. Smotherson. Madam Clerk, may we have the first reading?
Bill 9492, an ordinance amending section 400.070 of the municipal code of the city of University City, Missouri, relating to the official zoning map by amending said map so as to change the classification of property known as Lot B of Plat 4 of the Market at Olive Development from GC General Commercial District and SR Single Family Residential District to PD Planned Development Commercial District, PD-C.
Thank you. We now have bill number 9493. Who would like to introduce? Mr. Hales. Ms. Reese, may we have the first reading?
Bill 9493, an ordinance approving a final development plan for Lot A and Common Ground 2 of the proposed Market at Olive Development Plat 4.
Thank you very much. That concludes the new business for the evening. Are there any council reports or business to discuss during this part of the agenda? Hearing none, we have no citizen comments, as I recall. Ms. Reese, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any council comments? Hearing no council comments, I would welcome a motion to go into closed session according to Missouri Revised Statute 610.021, legal actions, causes of action, or litigation involving a public governmental body and any confidential privileged communication between that governmental body or its representatives or attorneys. Is there such a motion? Motion made by Mr. Hales. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cusick,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson, Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon,
Aye.
Councilmember Hales.
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye. Thank you very much for joining us. We will now move to the executive session.